Welcome to Self. I'm Courtney Brame, the host of this podcast, which consists of the self education that your future self will thank you for. If you're listening in on this, thank you for being here. This was something that I think I've really wanted to make for myself as a way of just healing and being able to put that on display along with my face because I didn't have representation of what healing looked like as a black man. I'm 32 years old, and it's been a very challenging, I want to say, 5 years. Let's call it 5 years of the time that I learned that this was even a thing. Like what I was doing as I was feeling stuck, or as I was just feeling numb, even like needing to feel some sense of purpose, of excitement, of having something to look forward to. I began to just experience different ways of doing that through listening to podcasts, listening to audiobooks, and doing a lot of the self-reflection activities that I mentioned in episode 1, which if you haven't checked out, please do. Because it does a good job of giving you an idea of where I'm going with my rambles, which I'm sure are going to happen throughout uploading episodes of this podcast. But yeah, it's a matter of me just putting my healing on display. Maybe there's someone who will find this years later or even now who it clicks with. I had someone reach out to me. I shared the podcast with her, and she was like, oh my God, it is really wild just how well you spoke to my own personal experiences, as if we were going through the same thing. So I really appreciated that, hearing that from her. So shout out to Sarah for giving me that. And in addition to that, I feel as if over the last several weeks, I've been given a lot of universal confirmation that what I'm doing is what I'm supposed to be doing, and that I am where I'm supposed to be, because I was having a lot of back and forth, even leading up to the first recording of Self, about what my intentions were, about if this was the right thing to do, how can I continue to do this for myself and continue to do all of the work that I had been doing with another podcast and with the nonprofit Something Positive for Positive People as well. Was there a way for me to integrate this into that, or was it not on brand, so to speak? And the answer is I can do both. I was thinking that I had to choose. I was thinking that perhaps it would be a good idea for me to just have one space for everything. And that's not really a fit, at least at this moment. I'm a living example of being able to go into something, take what you need from it, and then move on to the next thing, but without having to necessarily walk away. So I'm not walking away from what I had done before, or making any sort of like a transition to do too much or take away from the core of what it was. I did need a little bit of a reminder of what my intention was so that I could get into alignment. And being able to have just those reminders from the universe of who I am and what it is that I come to do, it's been a relief more than anything, because I do recognize where my capacity lies. The more that I do, the more that I realize what my capacity is, and the more I can reprioritize in a way to continue to get things done. So over the last few weeks, what I've been experiencing were signs of me needing to continue to do what it is that I do for other people, as far as continuing the Something Positive for Positive People podcast, which I had been contemplating ending at episode 200 for various reasons. And I wanted to exclusively operate the nonprofit and focus more on its growth in a way that I felt the podcast was taking away from it. And I also wanted to do this for myself, because this is just a passion project. Yeah, I invested into a website in order to be able to upload podcast episodes, but this is an investment in me. And it's me being able to have this vehicle of self-expression in a way that is not limited by the framework of what the Something Positive for Positive People podcast has provided. So as I continue to self-educate myself, I am making this the place where I do that and put these lessons out there, even as a reminder to myself. I had a friend once ask me, do you even listen to your own podcast? Because I was, in a situation that I shouldn't have been in that completely goes against my beliefs expressed through what I've shared on my podcast. And had it not been for that comment, I think that I'd have probably continued to do that cycle of behavior that didn't serve me or align with my true core values and beliefs about myself. So shout out to Tyler. Thank you for giving me that, because I think that was also a nugget that was put in me in order to feel like I could host this podcast. So some of the lessons I want to say over the last couple of weeks that were signs that I needed to continue to operate the way that I was operating, or just have those shifts. One of which was the concept of karma. What goes around comes around. Usually, I don't carry cash on me. I don't keep it on me. And I'm sharing this story not as a way of bragging, but as a way of just showing you how this being an example of what can happen for people in any way. Like, I don't want you to look for this to happen, but understand that this is one way that karma operates. So I'm at my gym, and I was here with Carl and Malcolm, the other two trainers, and it was the afternoon, and a guy comes up and he gives us a story about him not having money to catch the bus or whatever. And there's usually a guy that walks by and he asks for money for the bus as well. So I made it a point. I was like, you know what? I have a few dollars. I can keep the cash on me. So the next time I don't have to say, hey, we don't carry cash here. I don't carry cash on me. So Carl and Malcolm, they didn't have any cash. So I ran to the back and I just took all the money that I had out of my wallet. It was a $5 bill and a $1 bill. So I gave that to him. He says thanks, goes on about his business. And the next day, probably not even 12 hours later, I met with a new client who pays up front for the next 2 weeks. Someone showed up to the yoga class and paid. And it just went to show me like how I was willing to and followed through with giving, my last, it's only $6, right? But my $6 to him probably felt like 60 or 600 even, because he had somewhere to go, he had somewhere to be. I don't know what his living situation was. I don't know what his food situation was. I don't know if he wanted to take that money and go buy some cigarettes or drugs with it. And he just saw some people who looked like him in the space that looked like they would be able to help him get what it was that he needed. But none of that really matters. And my mom always said, what they do with the money that you give them, they being people who are in need, ain't got nothing to do with me. It ain't got nothing to do with us, right? And so I've, for a while, had that belief until I was what I felt to be taken advantage of or laughed at and lied to, because I've caught people, doing scams or being in the same place with the same story and seen them later driving cars and stuff. So I've been like, you know what? I'm only giving people food. And I gave that absolute limitation on myself of the only thing that I am going to give is food. So if you're willing to come with me to somewhere for me to make a purchase, you're going to stand in line with me, place an order, and then wait around for your food to come, and then maybe we can have a conversation, then you really need it. But yeah, I got away from that, and especially because of us being in the pandemic now, and I recognize just how challenged people really are with getting money from people because of COVID and social distancing and mask wearing. So the people who normally would make whatever it is that they need in order to survive through the next day, they're even facing the challenge of that, of their primary source of income being impacted, and they also may not be able to meet the requirements to receive pandemic assistance, pandemic unemployment assistance, PUA. So that situation just coming around the way that it did so quickly, with my intention not necessarily being on, oh well, if I give him everything I have, then I'm gonna get a lot back. No, the intention was just, oh, I can help. Here you go. Here's what I can do. Another example, like I mentioned, I was considering ending the Something Positive for Positive People podcast, has been the number of people who've reached out. I didn't say I'm ending the podcast, never announced that or anything. And I've had some private conversations, but for complete strangers to reach out and tell me how it saved their lives and tell me how much of an impact it's had on them and be like, please don't ever stop doing this. Specifically, that sentence, please don't stop doing this, has been coming up a lot. And I'm like, damn, why is this coming up now? you know, um, and I've had these little inklings of wanting to move on and do something else or do something different or take what I've learned from Something Positive for Positive People and apply it to something new. And it's been a pull for me to do so, but there's also been like these little nudges from people out of the blue just coming along and sending these messages to me like that about me not quitting and continuing to do what it is that I'm doing without me making any sort of shift or transition away from the podcast and its resources. And the conversation that I had with Carl, who owns the gym that I work at, he said, he was like, why do you feel like you have to do one or the other? And this is something that my partner Lindsay always brings up to me too. She's like, why does it have to be either or? So the message from both of them, two people that I probably spend the most of my time with, are it is, you can do both. Why can't you do both? Why can't it be this and? So I'm really struggling right now more than anything with adopting the this and mindset, because it's always been like a matter of absolutes. And even though the way that I've gone about doing things has been, I understand that things are situational. I understand that so rationally, but on an uncontrollable level, an emotional level, I want this to be what it is and put a label on it, and it's always going to be that. But the reality is, things evolve, things change, people change, right? People grow. And again, all of these messages that are challenging me from expanding, transforming, transitioning to really being true to my core. And one of the things that challenged me to be true to my core is the fact that I have genital HSV2. This is, I don't know if I said it on the first episode, but genital herpes. I've had it for 8 years. And I had a random thought, like a shower thought, that perhaps the first person that I had sex with might have been the person that I'm someone that I may have exposed to it, or maybe perhaps they had given it to me, because this was someone that I didn't follow up with. I know I followed up with people before I opened up about my status and started that podcast and began putting my face and name out there, and just let them know what I was doing, and to just be like, hey, did I give you herpes? And this was someone that missed. I didn't think the call because of the timeline being off, but it was possible that I could have exposed her to it, or that she could have exposed me to it. So I had that thought a couple of weeks ago, and I remembered a time where we had reconnected, and around this time that we had reconnected, she'd made an attempt to end her life. And the trigger warning, I should have given that earlier. I'll put that in the show description. But yeah, we were each other's first sexual experience with one another. So there was some kind of a bond there for sure. And the sense of familiarity and trust and safety. But she had been going through a lot at that point in time. And had I known what I know now, I would have encouraged her to get help, but I didn't know. So she and I had reconnected, and she wanted more from me than what I was willing to give her. Me being 20, 21 years old in college, and just not, I wasn't able to even articulate what it was that I wanted, but I knew that I had valued my freedom and I didn't want to be in a relationship. And I think that that's what she was asking of me at that point in time. So I got a very cryptic voicemail from her because she was calling me, and I was like, something ain't right, and I just wasn't answering the phone. And when I saw that she left the voicemail, I was like, huh. So I listened to the voicemail, and the voicemail sounded like a goodbye, and I felt that. And so I got off the phone. I called I don't know if it was 911 or if it was a suicide lifeline, but I called someone, and I gave the best description of where she lived because I didn't have her address off the top of my head. I just had her name, her mom's name, and hopefully they were able to figure that out. So I got a call a few hours later from her brother, who he just said thank you, and he sounded a little bit shook. I didn't ask for any details. I just knew that they found her in the tub with some pills. That's all I can remember. And so time passes. Fast forward, I think that might have been 2009. Yeah, it might have been 2009, 2010 when that happened. So I had this inkling of a thought because I've started an entire nonprofit podcast based on suicide prevention, because after I found that there were people who were living with herpes and wanted to kill themselves, I went and just wanted to do something for them. I don't know what it is specifically about suicide that inspires this action from me. I've never been someone who's threatened suicide. I've never considered it. It's just not been something that crossed my mind. And I've had friends ask me, have you ever thought about like how you'd kill yourself? And I was like, no, I think I pictured dying certain ways, but not really doing it by myself or doing it for myself or to myself, not intentionally. And I can picture different ways that people do die by suicide and try and put myself in these positions just to empathize, and it's just not there for me. And I'm very well aware that I'm perhaps coming from a place of privilege to be able to say that nothing's been so bad for me or so out of control that I felt that an attempt at taking my own life was something that was on the table. So I had this thought, and I was like, damn, maybe it was possible that there was a herpes exchange between us. So I reached out to her just to see if I had potentially passed it on to her, or if it was possible that she given it to me, or if she just had it at all. I was just curious. And the way that the conversation went actually gave me something that I was unaware that I needed. And again, this is another one of those signs from the universe. We exchanged dialogue. I let her know that I wanted to talk to her about that time in her life. And it was even, what's wild is that it was something that I didn't necessarily want to say out loud or verbalize, or even write up in a text to say that time you tried to kill yourself. And she actually ended up bringing it up before I did. And she thanked me for it. Was just such a pleasant exchange. She thanked me for saving her life. She just gave me this validation that even at that time where I've had people tell me I've done some shitty things to them, she was able to tell me that she said sorry for how she was at that point in time, and she thanked me for being myself and for being someone that she could be real with and be honest with herself about, and some other things that really resonated with me and just felt like the healing that I didn't even know that I needed. I have created an entire podcast of almost 200 episodes and a nonprofit that serves as a suicide prevention resource. And not really, I didn't even really think about this having been an event that could have had an impact on my willingness to do that. And I've had family members threaten suicide. I have lost people around me to suicide. And it's, I guess, all of that having been pushed down or repressed or just kind of glossed over, I think that it expressed itself through the manifestation of the suicide prevention resource that Something Positive for Positive People is. And here's where things like really connect with me talking about wanting to move on or transition away from this suicide prevention resource that is exclusive for people with herpes. Having the confirmation from her that, one, she doesn't have herpes, or at least wouldn't have gotten it from me. Yay, that's a relief. I still get to keep my track record of not having passed it on to any partners. And just how like it's suicide, period. It's mental health, period. It didn't have to link to sexual health. And I think that that's part of what my drive for having started Self is. It's not just talking about sex and sexual health, but talking about mental health in a way that can be the way that we talk about sex, and talking about suicide and suicide prevention, and how important it is that we look at these things that we were not given as tools to learn by institutions that ought to be educating us. The self-education piece, these experiences that are being had, that I'm having, and the lessons that come with them, and hopefully the experiences and lessons of the people who decide to listen to this podcast are all things that are teaching tools. These are self-taught tools. Through the experiences that we have, we can be our own teachers, and we can also learn from the experiences of other people, just through exchanging dialogue, trading experiences, telling stories, talking to people, because a lot of what other people experience and go through, these are things that we can have some sort of a paralleling experience with, or we could have already had those, or moving forward, we can be equipped with the tools to better navigate a situation. So I'm drifting off a little bit here, but the point of me sharing the suicide story is that this is something that I guess I had so hard tried to push down and out of my conscious space of being something that happened, that it came out on the other side. Like I tried so hard to push it down, that it had to break through on the other side. And it did, fortunately, in a way that has been such a useful resource for so many people. And this was even something that she said, like, wow, that is really powerful. She donated to my nonprofit, and we talked a little bit about, what it is that I'm doing and got going on. And we talked about her, like she's married right now. She has 2 small children, and she's doing well. And I didn't realize how bad I needed to hear that she was doing well. Now, I didn't need to hear that I saved her life. I felt like I needed to hear that I didn't give her herpes, or that she didn't have it. I wanted to hear that, yeah. But more than anything, what I needed was just that reasoning behind the validation that I can still, that this is suicide prevention aspect of what it is that I do, or the way that the piece of my work that revolves around mental health, how that is really what's at the core of my drive. That it's not just herpes activism or herpes education advocacy. It's mental health advocacy, because of this experience and so many others. And that's just one more aspect of validation that I needed. I heard that I saved someone's life, and it had nothing to do with herpes. So if it's not exclusive to herpes, and that's not a part of my own identity, then I am free to embrace the reality that there's so much more to the healing of myself and the world that can and needs to take place beyond the limitations that I put on myself, or the labels that other people even put on me. And so this being another one of those signs from the universe, just like having that sense of closure to know, all right, cool, I didn't pass herpes on to this person, and by the way, this person who says that I saved their life, like the story is how I remember it, and I wasn't making shit up. And the way that the way that she just talked to me, it was such a healing experience for me. And I also had another thing that happened, just to give context here, or if I'm listening to this later and need this kind of reminder of assurance. A guy that I trained, his name's Brad, and Brad and we trained together for a few weeks. He always had like something going on with his knee, and we talk about a little bit of mental health stuff, and I'd give him a workout. So time passes, and I forget how much time, but it's been a lot to the point where I remember he was training for the academy, but he just kept having knee problems. And so the academy being a police academy, I want to say. So he disappeared for a while, and he checked in like once or twice and just said, hey, I see your post. Hi, how's it going? That kind of stuff. But what was it? 2 weekends ago? Yeah, because I was at Target. 2 weekends ago, right before I got my stimulus check, he had called me, and I was in Target, and I had just hey, you talk, I'll listen, because I got my mask on, I'll be mumble. So he shared with me that he had all this positive stuff going on, and he wanted to share with me specifically because I was one of the more impactful people in his life. And I just was kind of like, damn. We've had the exchange that we had, client service provider relationship dynamic, but I've also like encouraged him to make sure that he's taking care of his mental health and taking care of his physical health. He told me one time, he's like, I went to the doctor, I didn't want to go to the doctor, and they gave me some news that I didn't necessarily like, but it was a good thing that I went to the doctor because you told me to. And he took my advice on taking care of his mental health and looking at his experiences with having had depression and being more mindful of that as well. But he called me just to tell me that he took a test, he got into school, the school was paid for, and he gave me a lot more credit than I felt that I deserved. And that really just like blew my mind. It felt good because all this time later, we might have worked together for about 2 months. Like he might have trained at the gym for 2 months, and then here we are, I would say a year and a half to 2 years later, where he's reached out and he's just like, man, thank you. So the way that karma works, the way that karma goes around, and I mean, I don't want to say like I got something out of that, but just the feeling that you get from being remembered, being thought about. And I put at the peak of hierarchy of my being in life, my primary motivator is connection. For me to have these connections that are just kind of floating around there. There's no intention. I don't intend on cashing in on what I gave to people, which but I do feel connected to. And if any other type of intention, any motivator underlying what it is that I'm doing, if not mentioned, it's for the sake of just connecting and feeling connected to. So for Brad to have had an interaction with me over those 2 months and hit me up, almost 2 years later, and be like, man, you impacted me. Like that feeling to me is someone giving that's like them giving me a check for whatever amount of money. Like that's an emotional check for me and a spiritual check for me that just like it fuels me. The man that I gave my last $6 to, same thing. With my ex-girlfriend who tried to kill herself. Here we are, I think maybe it's been 11 years. That's been a minute, about 10, 11 years. And for her to have just given me this confirmation now where I'm at in my own journey of life and healing, and to have received that, to know that I am in fact on the right track of whatever it is that I'm supposed to be doing. I can't say that I see a finish line or a final destination that's coming up, but I can say that the karmic payoff, the validation that I'm in alignment, that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, that I've not reached my capacity, that I am able to take on more, and that I am able to continue to do what I'm doing. Plus, and the this and mindset, being able to apply this and to all areas of my life without necessarily becoming greedy or becoming obsessed, but just almost in like a delusional way of just knowing that where I'm at, what I'm doing, things are going to work out. It's been super motivating and assuring for me to have gotten these and then some others that I don't feel like I really need to mention given the context of those. Just seeing how karma is working and just seeing how the universe is conspiring with me, not against me, as I walk and I make the decisions that I'm making based off of my own gut reactions, the impulses that I have, these intuitive impulses, I want to call them. Let's call it that. The intuitive impulses to do something a little bit different, but not sure what. But to add to, I feel like when you declare things out into the world, that you begin to see the signs that you can do what it is that you want to do. And here are the tools that you have. It's a matter of choice on your behalf of what gets done with those tools, with those opportunities. And, here I am now, not only in pursuit of my purpose through something positive for positive people in response to perhaps like the traumas that I've had endured, making me the kind of person who has this seemingly infinite emotional capacity to support the healing and facilitate the healing of so many people out there in the world, to also me being able and willing to explore my newfound passion for podcasting, as well as self-education, self-exploration, and being able to start this self podcast as the vehicle that doesn't necessarily have the same limitations that my podcast about people living with STIs would have, something positive for positive people. It doesn't have those. And this is more of a representation of my core values: evolution, peace, liberation. So I mentioned that in the last podcast, and I'm experiencing that. Like, I feel aligned, and I feel that when opportunities arise, when I get these little interactions from people, that I'm being given assurance that I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be. What do those nudges of assurance look like for you right now? If you're a listener, what type of nudges are you getting? What type of assurance are you getting that the decision that you made is allowing for you to walk a particular path that may not be 100% clear, but the more you walk, the more clear it becomes. The more you're feeling in a space of peace, or wherever it is that your values really align. What type of intuitive impulses are you having? Are you going in the direction of what serves you, or are you like leaning away from it? Are you wavering a bit and you're getting these nudges from the universe and maybe you're not relying on them or paying attention to them? What's that look like for you? You don't have to answer that, but definitely explore the question and see how it is that you feel about it. If you feel uncomfortable, maybe it's not the time to go into it. If you are uncomfortable, then maybe it's time to get more uncomfortable so that you can just be at peace with whatever it is that you're accepting about yourself and from people. One other like nasty thing that I have going on for me right now is that this desire, this need to fix and heal people is really flaring up for me right now. I know that I'm the kind of person who I talk about boundaries and I think that I have it down packed and practiced, but I don't always. And I'm learning that my boundaries really form around me wanting to get what I want from someone who perhaps does not have boundaries themselves, and I'm trying to like make them have them so that they can teach me how to be in the world. with being self-employed. I think that I let clients often dictate a lot of what the boundaries are in our client to service provider interaction. You know, like what's okay for how soon payment is delivered, the payment method. Oh yeah, whatever's best for you. What time can you come? Oh well, I'm here from these times, but I can work around your schedule and be there outside those times. And in a sense, it creates this sense of boundarylessness. And in dating, where this shows up is being unintentional with who it is that I am exchanging time with, or that I'm exchanging energy with. If I want one thing long term and you want another thing long term, then why are we bothering entertaining each other than the fact that I actually do know what I want and I'm willing to conform my boundaries around who I think you need me to be in order for me to get what I want. And I'm going to do such a great job at it that eventually you're going to just give me what I want because you feel compelled to, or because you love me so much. And that's a very manipulative thing. And I kind of woke up this morning and explored that a little bit. And it's wrong of me to do that from a manipulative standpoint. I think that I'm very transparent with people up front. But the problem with that is that when people are transparent back, I think that we more so value, I can't say we, I more so value the fact that a person can be transparent with me than I do the fact that we're probably just not a good fit for each other. So being able to, quote, accept someone as they are for who they are looks a lot different than, it looks a lot different than like trying to make them more of something else just by me being myself. Because I give a great example. Someone that I know and respect, they talk very openly about their sex life and their dating life, in that they date women, period. And their women dating is inclusive to trans women. Whatever their body parts look like in the genital region, they date women, period, and that's it. So what he said was that like he doesn't really do well dating with people who don't identify as women, because his masculinity and the way that he is with women, it denies them of their own expression and who they are in the relationship. And that's something that always stuck with me. I may not have worded it exactly perfect, but if you're a man who dates women and you're with someone who identifies as non-binary or does not necessarily believe in a man being the one to open the door or being chivalrous or those traditional gender roles, then it challenges your identity, and that doesn't feel good. So I've been faced with a situation here recently where my wanting to I have a deep desire for just intimacy, not just in a physical sense, but also in a mental and emotional and spiritual sense, to where, yeah, if sex is included, cool. But like I've recently been seeing someone where the initial contact was in regards to sex, and I'm being myself, and me being myself challenges this person's identity about who they are, what they deserve, and in a sense, like having brought the conversation to surface, it feels as if there's a little bit of friction between us and resistance between us. And now that it's been brought to the surface, like I can't unsee that now, because I'm so, healing, growing, expanding perspective, change into the person that you want to be. And then this person is someone who has accepted that they'll never be someone who will fit the narrative of like the kind of person that I am. Like this person being someone who's just like, nope, I'm gonna be alone forever. I just want to have sex. I don't really care to be intimate with people because they always leave. And I challenge her beliefs about herself, but she's accepted this about herself. And me being the kind of person I am, it really challenges me to just accept that about someone and accept that they don't challenge themselves. And we can coexist, but it's probably not a good idea for me to be so into my identity that it infringes on her freedom of expression, or the other way around even. Like maybe I'll dim my light a little bit because she's more of a realist, I would say, or maybe more pessimistic, or just like dark and accepting about where she is in her life, whereas I'm like the opposite end of that. Like, hey, you can do whatever you want to. Like, just let's act in a way that's different. And so like I have to accept that kind of thing. Like I have to accept that I can't change people or fix people or make them like me or make them think like me. But even in this relationship, you know, after having woken up to this difference, I see areas where I was being myself in a way that did infringe on who she is or who she believes herself to be. And fortunately, there's been a space created between us to where we can have that kind of dialogue exchange. And so now, like, I'm in a space of having to not make a choice, because I think that at this point the choice has already been made, of us not continuing with developing the relationship that we have. So the conversation's been started and it's ongoing. Unfortunately, it's happening through text, but hopefully some type of like positive experience of closure can occur. Simply because like we have to be willing to walk away from what we're not in line with or what we're compatible with in order to step towards what is for us and who is for us. So don't think about it like walking away. I shouldn't have said that, but think about it like walking towards, and almost even a redirection in the dating world. Like the whole process of getting to know someone and dating them, and then just it not working out for whatever reason, it's a redirection. And the redirection, it's almost like you're playing this game of connect the dots, right? You go from one dot to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. And if you look at each individual line, they're a different direction or maybe even a similar direction, but it doesn't show you anything. You don't get the picture until you keep going. And by the time you want to do a check-in, you zoom out of that one line and you see a picture beginning to form. And with that picture, it puts you where you need to be only because of where you've been before. And that's what self-trust looks like. That to me is what, you know, the good karma is. I've connected dots with so many different people. I've hit so many obstacles and responded to these moments of adversity in a way that's redirected me to the next dot, to the next dot, to the next dot. And now my picture is in fact getting clearer. The way that I meet these dots has been with my intuitive impulses. And I think we all have these impulses that stem from our intuition, and we shut it down. We shut it down. My intuition has always told me, yeah, Courtney, you know, you got a couple dollars. Go ahead and give it to that man or that person, that human that is in need. You have it to give, so why not give? And I always shut it down with, no, what if they use it for drugs? I don't want to enable that behavior. And I'm justifying, you know, my shitty behavior with, you know, projecting onto them what I think they're going to do with it. And I don't have any idea. And like my mom said, it's out of my control what they do with it. I could have shut down my intuition that was like, Courtney, you probably should call the suicide lifeline because she is going to do something to herself. I could have easily just been like, you know what, it should be all right, or that ain't my place, or I let her parents deal with it, or we ain't together, or my ego could have been in the way of just me being like, that's not my problem. What if I hadn't what if I hadn't taken action? You know, what if when Brad was here and working out and talking about his knee and talking about his health, and I was just like, damn, I can't tell people what to do. Who am I to tell people what they need to do? But instead, I followed my impulse of my intuition, my intuitive impulse. And I told him, hey, man, you should check out the doctor. Hey man, that sounds like depression. You might want to talk to somebody about that. And look where we are. Like those people are here, alive. They're doing things. And because I didn't go against my intuition, we learn to fight our intuition. We learn to be impulsive, but in the wrong ways. Like, I don't think our intuition is there to harm us or do anything hurtful to us. We act against our best interest, and our intuition is just that sensor of move forward, move forward, move forward. And when we deny that, we make moving forward a little bit harder each time we create that barrier of we create barriers of resistance by denying our intuition. So as you continue to hit these obstacles, hit these connections with people and situations, and you redirect, and things do go your way, don't go your way, regardless, you're forming a picture. You're forming a picture that we should be proud of. And every action that we're having is collecting, karma's collecting in a bank account, in an emotional, mental, spiritual bank account. And occasionally we get checks, and it may not be on a frequent basis. It's like being self-employed. You don't know when you're going to get paid. But when you do, you're happy that it happened. But this karma account is just something that transcends money. And perhaps karma does show up in the form of money. Look at me with having given 6 and been given 160. Right? But we really need to align with our intuition. We have to be true to ourselves. And I'm learning that not just in my relationships and dating and friendships and career and my passion projects, I'm not only learning that the more I go against what my values are, what's in line with my intuition, the worse. But I'm also learning just like how much good comes out that I'll probably never know about or never hear about, and that my intuitive impulses, responding to them appropriately, are causing me to have these cash these karmic cash dollars being thrown at me on a regular basis. And it feels good to me internally. It feels good to me emotionally, mentally, spiritually, to know that I'm connected with people in a way that is supporting their healing. And in me just healing out loud, I like to say I'm healing out loud through this podcast. More people are being given to than I think I give myself credit for. Like I'm offering to people, and I try to be modest about it. But with all of the signs coming in over the last few weeks, and just seeing the value of me actually being myself and not allowing anybody to, or not allowing myself to try and adapt in order for me to get whatever it is that I need in a moment from somebody. Like I can't keep doing this to other people, nor can I keep doing it to myself, because when we do that, when we conform who we are and our identities around the boundarylessness or the boundaries of another person without having our own, we lose ourselves. And we also create situations that could completely have been avoided. And I know the lesson, so why would I repeat it for myself? Trying to be something to someone that I'm not, or acknowledging when someone's trying to be something for me that they're not, and being willing to step in and say, hey, here's what I'm seeing, this is what I'm observing. I think this, what about you? And then we can negotiate the terms and talk about boundaries, or we do what we know needs to happen, which is just walk away from each other in a way that, I said it again, walk towards what it is and who it is that we want and should have in our lives. Those opportunities, we're missing the opportunity to redirect in the right direction by staying in one spot for too long. And the intuitive impulses will always tell you when it's time to go, or when it's time to do something different, or when it's time to take action. That's what it is. When it's time to take action, whoo, and you do it when you're supposed to, you end up right where you're supposed to be, right there in the spot, right there where somebody needs you, right there where you need yourself. That's what it's about. So I think that whatever it is that is taken away from listening here, there has to be something that in the moment of this being consumed by a listener, even if this listener is me later on in life, that parallels with this. And at the end of the day, follow those intuitive impulses, the intuitive ones, the ones that let you know that it's time to move forward. For me, I get like this chill down my spine, or it's like a shock of the central nervous system. My nerves run through my body mostly when I'm watching cartoons and I get excited, or there's like a heroic thing, and what that tells me is to do the heroic thing, take that heroic action at all times. And I find myself in situations where it's a matter of observing that feeling as well. If an action needs to be taken and I have that feeling, then I know I have to move forward. It just happened right now when I said that. When I said I have to move forward, I know what that means. That means that I need to continue to do what I'm doing. I need to do both. I need to have this and mindset for what it is that I'm doing, because I can do it, because I was groomed for this. I was trained for this. And you were trained for something too. What have your traumas taught you? If you're willing to lean into what those are and embrace whatever those insecurities are, and that's something that I want to talk about in an upcoming episode. It was supposed to be this one, but listening to my intuition, I impulsively recorded this podcast episode and just started talking about the happenings of the last few weeks. So yeah, this has been, I want people to get back to trusting your intuition and let those be the impulse. Because your intuition wants what's best for you, what's best for the collective, what's best for the source. Sometimes you want what you think you want is best for you, and I've been there. I'm there now. I'm still making decisions based on what I think I want or what I think is best for me, rather than what I know. What I know. Knowing and thinking are different. Respond from your intuition, because that's that place of trusting the knowing. Trust in what you don't know, what you cannot know, from your intuition. Because it's always acting on behalf of the collective, like what's best for the collective of us. My intuition has put me in a community of people that I serve. My intuition has brought me so much more close to myself, my spirit, my emotions, my mind, my body. I'm connected. And that's when I'm aligned. I'm in pursuit of connection. I'm in pursuit of being in alignment with connecting and being connected to. That's me. What about you? What about you? We'll stop it here. That's this episode of Self. If you enjoyed this podcast episode, feel free to let me know. You can email me, Courtney@selfed.com, which is just Courtney@selfed.com, all one word. And like the podcast, subscribe to it. And again, this will be something that I'm trying to get out every Tuesday, and just share the self-education practices that I'm developing for myself. Things that I would have liked to have had out there for me, being a black man, being 32. Like, we weren't supposed to make it past 25, like Kanye West said. And statistically speaking, that is not, a lot. I think we're at a different place in time right now. But to be a black man that did what I was supposed to do, don't get nobody pregnant, because that's what I was told. I got somebody pregnant, but I don't have any children, and that's a whole nother conversation. Don't and make sure that I finish school. After that was all I had to go off of. I didn't have more than that. I didn't know what was next. I didn't know what working looked like after I got my degree, or pursuing jobs, or being in corporate America with people who don't look like me, where I had to learn to adapt to that. Being in places that didn't align with my values, but I didn't know they didn't align with my values because I didn't know what those were. And it took for that further education for me to understand what boundaries are, and learn that I can say no, and I can ask for what I want, and I can reach out and ask for support and help. But when you don't know that you can do these things, it makes it very challenging to do. So that's what this is. This is learning that you can do that. Learning what it does look like once you get past that point of doing what you were told to do, what you were supposed to do, and you're like, now what? This is what. Now we self-educate. Now we self-explore. Now we navigate our spirit and our emotions, and we figure out what it is that, not only what it is that we want to do, but who we are at our core. I mentioned evolution, peace, liberation. That's me. That's my identity. My sole motivating purpose in life is connection, whatever that looks like. Being connected to, connecting with others, being connected to the source, connected to myself, connected to whatever it is that I'm investing my energy in. And right now, that's this. That's my healing. That's putting these lessons out here on display. This is my self-education podcast that your future self will thank you for. And I thank you for being here and listening. Hope to hear you or find out you listen next week. I don't know how to word that. But yeah, thanks for being here. Thanks for sticking around. Thank you.